Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 89 of Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. I'm Kimberly, your host, and I am super excited to be here with you today. Did You Bring the Hummus is a podcast for all things vegan. Episodes post every Monday on your favorite podcast app. Before we get started, I have one very important question for you. Did you bring the hummus? Do you love the podcast? Would you get a kick out of hearing a shout out on a future episode? How about time to connect virtually with me or other listeners quarterly or monthly? Or if you're a vegan business who would like to sponsor episodes of Did You Bring the Hummus, I'd love to chat. Find out more under the Support the Podcast tab on my website. Did you know that this podcast is a direct result of a public speaking project? I fully believe that without this level of practice, I would never have even thought to start a podcast. So now I'm offering public speaking guidance and coaching, specifically for those who are terrified, but know that facing this fear is what will take them to the next level in their business, career, and life in general. Check out the Public Speaking 101 tab on my website to learn more and to schedule a free call to find out if I'm the right person to help you navigate this journey. Today, I am joined by Dr. Ron Weiss of Ethos Primary Care. Dual board certified in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine, Ron Weiss, MD, is a primary care physician in New Jersey and New York who serves as executive director of Ethos Primary Care and as assistant professor of clinical medicine at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. He has been featured in top media, including the New York Times, the New York Post, the Today Show, New Jersey Monthly, and the feature-length documentary Eating You Alive. This joyful and engaging conversation is sure to have you laughing, thinking deeply, feeling inspired, and maybe even shedding a tear or two. Hey, Dr. Weiss, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Kimberly.
I always start at Did You Bring the Hummus? The first thing I'm going to ask you about is to please share your vegan journey.
Well, my vegan journey is one that took place over a long time, many years. I considered myself a foodie always. I loved eating all kinds of foods. And I loved cooking these foods, all of them. But I always ate, even from a child, we were always sort of plant forward. We were given at home a lot of vegetables, salads to eat. And then the animal foods were sort of like the third course, or in volume, they were always less. And so that's really, I also maintained that when I left home and became an adult. I liked cooking. And then as I, finished medical school and my medical training, and I became a functioning physician, not a functional medicine physician, functioning physician. My father was diagnosed with, all of a sudden, out of the blue, end-stage metastatic pancreatic cancer. And we were very desperate. There was nothing that can be done to help him of any worth. And I happened to stumble across, by going to the public library, a book of testimonies of people who had reversed their problems and cured them, specifically cancer, using a macrobiotic diet, which it is a type of a whole foods plant-based diet. So I introduced this to my father. He adopted it, and he did amazingly. Over a course of about 6 to 9 months, his cancer shrunk by 50%.
Wow.
He lived about a year and a half instead of the 30 to 60 days he was given by the cancer hospital. And he did very well. He was an attorney. He felt great, better than he had ever in his life, until the cancer eventually overtook him. So I learned a valuable lesson from that food was medicine.
Yeah.
That's what I learned. Yeah. And because he had been eating, like me, before that, all kinds of things, and the only thing he did to change himself was to only eat plants. What was it? Right? He didn't accept chemo. He didn't do anything else. And he had this amazing, shocking reversal of fortune, at least for a year and a half. I didn't know why it happened. I didn't understand. But about 15 years later, a patient of mine told me about the China study and that it was an amazing book by T. Colin Campbell and that I should read it. And I read it. I stayed up a few nights in a row into the late at night. And I closed the cover of the book and I said, I'm going to only eat plants from now on. Because within that book, for the first time in my life, I felt a number of things. First of all, I began to understand, as explained by Dr. Campbell, why my father had reversed his cancer. And the other thing I remember feeling was anger. I was so angry that nobody had ever told me these things and that I had to read it in a book recommended by my patient, that no one had taught me this in medical school or in any training. And by the way, to this day, it is still kept a secret.
That's so frustrating.
So I closed the book and decided not only am I going to do this, I'm going to eat plants now because I did not want to get cancer like my father, and I was already middle-aged because there's a lot of cancer in my family. And the book is about how to prevent cancer, all kinds of cancers, by eating plants. I decided to do that, and I decided to bring this forth into the world because I wasn't going to have it be a secret anymore.
Yeah.
And I decided to do it myself and then transfer it to my patients and transfer it to the medical students, interns, and residents who came into my practice from the medical school to learn about how to their community practice rotation, because the young doctors and medical students rotate. I was participating as a sort of an adjunct professor at the medical school. And so that's what I did. And that was my portal of entry.
That's amazing. And how lucky are we that you're putting this out in the world? But
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And just not for nothing, but when I did it, I thought I was healthy. And I thought there's only one reason why I was going to eat like this. The reason why was because I didn't want to get cancer like my father. That's why I was going to do it. I didn't want to get cancer 30 years from now, when I was 70, like. But this is what I found out. I found out that I was overweight and I didn't know it. I lost 25 pounds in 90 days without even trying. And I wasn't overweight to begin with. I had a body mass index of 24. I was within the normal limit of BMI. And another thing I found out within a few weeks is my blood pressure, all of my adult life, had always been 120/80, which I thought was normal. And it fell rapidly to 100/60.
Wow.
As if I was like a teenage girl. And it's been there at 100/60.
That's amazing.
What can I say?
Plants. Magic.
Plants.
Yeah. But I've heard another part of your vegan journey. When I was at Farm Days, and we'll talk about Farm Days a little later on, I was at Farm Days when it was like one speaker over a weekend. I can't remember what year it was, but Gene Bauer was there. And you shared another part of your vegan journey while he was there about the turkey and the intern who had been raising turkeys. Would you share that story here with us too?
Yeah. So I like to tell people that in retrospect, that was how I entered the plant-based world. But really, there are three very powerful reasons to enter the plant-based world. And usually people do it for usually one of these reasons. And the most common one, believe it or not, is not for your health.
Yeah.
The most common reason people become vegan is for compassion, because they don't want to harm sentient beings. And that was the last thing that I understood.
Ah.
The second thing I understood, the third reason to eat plants is because of environmental reasons. And that was the second thing that dawned on me. And that was why we purchased the farm, which I could speak to later if you wish. The very last reason, as you alluded to, was the turkey incident.
Mm-hmm.
And this already happened when, my kids were like 7 and 8 or 9 years old. And we were on the farm, and I had the practice. It was going. My practice is in the middle of this 300-year-old working organic farm in Long Valley, New Jersey. And it was getting close to Thanksgiving. And one of the interns on the farm asked if he could raise heritage turkeys. He wasn't plant-based,
Mm-hmm.
and he was here. And I said, okay, that's what you want to do. So, and he raised about, I don't know, 12 of them or 14, and from chicks. And they were placed, we live you've been here, I know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a beautiful green valley with beautiful mountains. Mount Schooley, you look up at it and it hems in the valley. And so this little hutch with the turkeys enclosure was placed right in the middle of this green valley in the middle of the field, in this sunny valley with these beautiful views. And the fall colors were here, and it was a brilliant sunny day, and these turkeys had grown up from chicks, and now they were ready to dispatch for Thanksgiving. And he took all of them, he dispatched them. I don't know what was going on. I wasn't even paying attention.
Mm.
And then, because I'm busy with my practice, he comes up to me 2 days before Thanksgiving. He said, Dr. Weiss, we have one turkey left. Would you like this turkey for Thanksgiving? Now you have to remember, at this time, I wouldn't say I was a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
I was whole food plant-based. I was plant-based. Rarely I would have animal foods. And one of those times per year was on Thanksgiving. I would have turkey. Why would I do this? Because I'd always done it. It was ceremonial. It was a habit from beyond my memory since I was a small child. And I would love to eat. I hated dark turkey meat. I would love to have white sliced turkey breast and dip it in mayonnaise. That's since it was a child, this is something from my childhood,
Mm-hmm.
a memory. And that's what I identified with Thanksgiving. So I figured, okay, yes, because I'm going to have turkey this Thanksgiving. And I had 2 little children at this point, Rosie and Yasha. And Rosie I think she was 7. And I said to him, but I want to bring the kids to the farm and I want you to slaughter it in front of them because I want them to know
Mm-hmm.
what they're eating and what it takes, what they're eating, and that the food just doesn't come out of thin air. And I want them to understand the source of their food. Okay, he said. I gathered the children. We went over to the enclosure. It was this beautiful fall, sunny, late fall day. And we entered this enclosure. I don't know. It must have been maybe 10 feet by 8 feet or less than that. And when we walked into that enclosure, there was this one bird left. And all I can only describe his reaction as pure terror.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, it's hard. Maybe someone might say I'm anthropomorphizing like human emotions onto this bird, a simple bird, a turkey. But it seemed like that to me. I mean, I'd never thought about this before, but this bird was trying mightily as soon as we stepped in to get out, to fly away, whatever. And our intern spent about at least 5 minutes trying to corner him. There was nothing else in this little enclosure because he was so frantically trying to get away. And I began to think that is this bird really fight? I mean, does this bird know what's coming up?
Yeah.
Does he know? Is that
Mhm.
why because when we were walking, he was so calm. And then as soon as we entered, and then
Mhm.
I began to think, did this bird see what happened to his other friends who were in there? And is that why he's reacting like this? And
Yeah.
I just began to have these thoughts. So finally, our intern cornered the bird, picked him up, and hung him upside down. And I never had this experience before. I've never killed anything to eat
Mhm.
except a fish I once caught, which I
Mm.
felt very bad doing when I was a teenager. Because I loved fishing, but I didn't feel good when I killed that fish. But
Yeah.
I let it go. I was still eating sushi for many years after that.
Mhm.
So as soon as the bird was hung upside down, our intern explained, well, the blood is rushing to his head, and he became very sedate, and he just became limp. And I said, oh, okay, good. It's that is the suffering. Now
Mhm.
he took it to a chopping block. He cut his neck, and blood started pouring out. I guess he cut the carotid artery, and the bird exsanguinated there. It didn't seem to suffer to me. There was like some twitching, but that was it.
Mhm.
And then he went he took the bird, and he had a boiling cauldron of water after the bird was dead,
Mhm.
and he dunked the bird, cut off the head, dunked the bird in this cauldron of water to loosen the feathers. I This is something that I'd never seen in my life.
Mhm.
I just ate turkey on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Right.
I don't know what was involved.
Nicely packaged, ready to go.
And because I did not know, in order to pluck out the feathers, they have to be loosened by the heat. Otherwise, they're very hard. You can't pull them out because they're
Mm.
holding on. And so he did that. He scalded the skin, and then they were easy to pull out. And he plucked the feathers out. Then he cut the turkey open, and there was this smell in the air. I remember of wet, hot feathers, and it was just like not, yeah, like
Mm.
not such a good smell. He cut open the bird. My kids were watching. He showed them, and to me, this part, it was like an anatomy lesson, like I had been through in medical school, and before that, dissecting pigs and frogs and all the kind of animals so that we could learn anatomy. And we saw the lungs, and he showed us the heart, and he showed us the stomach and the crop and whatever. The kids are all watching this wide-eyed. He finishes his job. He wraps up the turkey. He hands it to me. We take it home. I give it to my wife. She cooks it, uh, and we go to Thanksgiving. There's some other turkey there. From my memory, I don't even think we ate this turkey.
Mm.
She cooked it, and no one really even wanted it. We went to our aunt's house for Thanksgiving, and I remember they were starting to pass around the turkey with the white sliced meat, the breast meat. And I remember thinking, all I could smell was that wet feather smell in my
Mm.
nose. And I remember thinking, well, I don't have to eat this.
Mm.
Why am I eating this turkey? I said, the animal was in this beautiful, peaceful valley, and I had him killed. Why?
Yeah.
Why? I eat plants. I don't need to eat this turkey. Um, it was having a nice life. Why did I have to do that? And now nobody even wants to eat it. I said, I'm not going to have turkey on Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
And I have,
Yeah. Ooh, it's powerful.
and Rosie, my 7-year-old, never said anything. But from that point on, she has never eaten any animal.
Mm.
And whenever I questioned her on it, she said, even as a young girl, she said, "Oh, I want to be healthy. I'm eating it. That's why I'm eating plants like you, Daddy."
Hmm.
But it was connected to that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that was my awakening into the world of compassion
Yeah.
for other sentient beings.
That is quite a story.
Yeah.
And I've heard this story before, and even hearing it again now, really just like hits me right in the heart, and thinking about your kids watching that and experiencing and whatever they might have been processing in the moment. And like you said, Rosie is like, no, she didn't talk about it, but she was like, that's not for me anymore. And
And
so many, yeah.
Rosie, as she was growing up, was afraid of birds
Oh.
because when she was a little kid, we took her to Van Saun Park Zoo in Bergen County, New Jersey. And they had these little budgies, these little parakeets. And you would go, it's a little kid zoo, you'd go in and give a stick with sesame seeds or millet seeds, and you hold them. And all the birds would start sitting on the stick, and they'd eat the seeds. And on Rosie's stick, one of the birds hopped up and started pecking her
Oh.
forearm,
Oh.
actually caused a wound there. And I think
Wow.
that traumatized.
Yeah.
However, to Rosie's credit, and I think she growing up, she despised birds,
Mm.
but she rose above that.
Yeah.
She rose above the fact that this was a bird. She despised all birds because of that. She
Mm.
rose above that, and I think it changed who she is.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking me to.
Now that we've heard about this terrible thing that happened at this beautiful farm in Long Valley, New Jersey, let's talk about what's going on at Ethos Farm, between the farm and your working medical practice. Just let's tell the listeners all the good stuff they can find there.
Yes. My intention in getting this farm were for multiple reasons. Um, but the first reason was what I told you. I decided at the time I was reading that China study, I would not only change myself, but then I was going to change the way I was going to practice medicine. I was going to use this food to heal people. And then when I saw that that was highly effective, I decided I can't practice in a regular place anymore.
Mm.
I have to go to the beginning of where food comes from because our food system is just terrible. It's the standard American food system. So I figured if I could go back to the beginning and change the way food is created and made for the community and involve the community in it and in an inspirational way in a beautiful place, that would help the community to embrace it and then adopt eating like this.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I realized is when I first tried it out in my old regular practice setting, nobody really cared.
Hmm.
No, I would I would talk about, oh, my father. There were very few takers.
Hmm.
People, they wanted to eat hot dogs and
Yeah. Give me the
cheeseburgers
pills. I'm not worried
and
about it.
Lipitor, blood pressure pills. They weren't really interested. Once in a while, I'd run across them. So I figured maybe I just need a new paradigm. And so that's when, and what was happening in my medical practice at the time is I was starting to suffer from physician burnout syndrome,
Mm.
which is a very real and potentially fatal
Wow.
condition that can end in suicide,
Mm.
depression for the physician, um, and at the very least, a very unhappy physician who makes medical errors,
Mm.
who may malpractice because of mistakes. It's estimated that about 50% of all physicians in America are now suffering from physician burnout syndrome because of the decay of our medical system
Mm,
and the corporatization and the industrialization of it.
yeah.
You have to remember physicians as a group of people, they were historically kind of independent people. They want to do their own thing. They don't want to
Mhm.
be controlled
Yeah.
by corporations and hospitals. And to show you what has happened, when I entered medicine, 80% of all, this was 8 years ago, 80% of all physicians were self-employed and
Mm.
20% were employed by corporations. It's now completely inverted.
Oh,
80% are employed by corporations and only 20%. And during the pandemic, it rose from 60 to 80%. All of a sudden, it really has
mm,
quickened, accelerated the pace of doctors being employed. And that's usually a bad thing for patients, because the thing about the traditional doctor-patient relationship is it's a relationship.
mm,
And the doctor, a good doctor, is supposed to go to bat for his patient or her patient no matter what, no matter how much something costs, no matter if the patient doesn't have money, no
mm,
matter how late the doctor has to stay up in the middle of the night or come into the hospital or the patient is homeless, it doesn't matter. And now that's being lost because now the corporation is responsible. And generally speaking, corporations really don't have personal relationships.
right.
Just like corporations are not individuals,
Hmm.
corporations don't have relationships with patients. They don't. Although they'll tell you they do, like Rise and Blue Cross, they don't.
Right.
They don't. So, in any event, things in my practice, which was a very beautiful practice, it was the most efficient practice at preventing people, primary care practice, as calculated by Aetna US Healthcare, a large insurer who we took care of their patients. We were the most efficient practice in the state of New Jersey at preventing hospital days and preventing patients from going into the emergency room because we took such good preventive care of them. But it didn't matter. We
Mm,
were going under financially because I spent too much time with the patients.
yeah.
And they paid us less. Every year they cut their reimbursements until it was a fraction of what Medicare paid us, until finally I had to give up. And I decided to start all over again in a new system, and that was the farm. So I
Mm,
put all these things together. And the other driving thing I mentioned before was the idea of environmentalism. So remember, there are three reasons, general reasons, why people may want to become vegan or eat a plant. Number one, the number one reason that people do it is because they don't want to harm sentient beings.
mhm.
The number two reason to do it is for their health. Oh my God, I just had a heart attack and I don't want to get another one. I better start eating well. The third, and probably the least popular one, is because of environmental reasons.
Mm,
Eating, and that I think has become more apparent as the years have gone on and climate change is getting worse. Eating plants will save our planet. It will save the planet for our children and our grandchildren. If everyone were to eat plants, it would happen. It would help to reverse climate change. It would help to prevent the mass extinction of species. It would help to save our oceans. It would help to create habitat, for pollinators and all kinds of vanishing wild animals. So I decided, looking at my two little children one day, looking at them, and they had these blue eyes. And they reminded me of when I looked into their eyes, they were toddlers. They reminded me of when I was a kid, there was that famous blue marble photograph that was taken
Mm,
by
yeah.
the Apollo crew, and their eyes looked like that.
Hmm.
And when I looked in their eyes, I saw Mother Earth. And that got me thinking. And I said, I have to do it for that reason. Because our food system is very destructive the way food is being grown. I've I've got I've got to find out some way. I'm a botanist by
Mhm.
training. I'm going to figure it out
Yeah.
and develop this, and then maybe have it as a model so that people could feed themselves locally in communities like New Jersey, which is what we used to do. That's why we are called the Garden State, but it's been long.
Mm,
We got the farm. I decided we had special requirements for the farm. It had to have a number of buildings, one to live in, one to have a medical practice, one for farmers, a barn. And it took a long time to find, and it had to have prime soils, the best soils, and it had to be in a community where farming had not gone extinct, so we could have help and brotherhood and sisterhood and people who knew how to farm and teach us. It was a big thing.
yeah.
So finally, we found this farm in Long Valley, New Jersey, after several years of looking.
Mm,
And it was way too big, way too expensive. But it was, I felt when I got here, it was the one.
yeah.
And so we bought it.
Hmm.
And today, the practice is right in the middle of the growing fields. The vegetable production fields surround us. It's a very old farm. It needs to be, it's in restoration mode, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
And we have a doctor's farm market. It's open to the public every weekend. Our farmers, in my opinion, they grow well. I don't know. You visited. I'll let you speak as to what you think of the produce. I hear people tell me it's the best they've ever tasted.
Yep.
Um, we grow 80 different kinds of vegetables, fruits, and grains.
Hmm.
And yeah, we have all kinds of programming. We have our Farm Days Festival, which is a beautiful festival, which is now the farm has become a nonprofit. And one of the missions of this festival is to bring these ideas that we've been talking about to the public so they understand.
Yeah.
They understand that they could reverse their heart disease with food and diabetes. They understand that it's not kind to kill other living things. They can understand that we can save our Mother Earth. That's why we have this Farm Day Festival.
I love it. So first, I'll comment on the produce, and absolutely 100%. Um, it is the best tasting produce I've ever had. I am very sad in the months where you are not open because then it means I have to eat produce from the grocery store, which doesn't taste as good. And it really has opened up the variety, because like you said, you're growing so many different things, and even, sometimes foraging some things on the land, so we get to
Yes,
try things that never would have even crossed our paths, and it's just such an interesting, fun thing. The farmers are so knowledgeable, so I love just chatting with, like, Jesse and Nick, and, I met David, when I was there last weekend, and it's so great, and Stephanie, she just lives for what's going on there, and
yes,
when you get to the farm and you're perusing the produce, everybody is so excited about what's happening at the farm, and you just can't.
they're almost right. They're electrified, right?
Yes,
It's like
yes. And you
what
taste it
I
in the
like to say
food.
is when you walk by when it's not farm day, you go by the doctor's farm market and there's this ramshackle old wooden building, and you think, "Ugh, that's a market." But then when you go there on the market day, they arrange things so beautifully. To me, it looks like an art installation. It
Mhm.
looks like a museum curated. Like they're not just piles of vegetables. These things look like they were arranged with some artistic
Yeah.
and some kind of visual appeal that would make you want to stop and say, "Oh my God, this is art."
Yeah. Yep. And there's so much love. You can tell that there's love in the growing process. There's love in putting it out there for us to look at and purchase. Like you're saying, it's so like it's laid out just so beautifully. And and then you look around. If you It's my favorite thing when I get there on Saturday mornings, I get out of the car, I stand and take a deep breath and just become one with the farm,
Yeah,
then go
it's
pick
very
up the
sweet the air
produce.
here. Yeah. And then when you walk into the farm market, as a little reminder of our feathered friends, they're birds' nests, barn swallows, and
Mhm.
just in the farm market,
Yeah.
they're hatching. You hear them tweeting, and their babies are being born and fledging, and
Mhm.
it's just like, yeah.
Yeah. They know they're safe there.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. It really is a magical space that you've created, you and your whole team. It's really beautiful.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just a speck compared to what they do. Yeah, they're phenomenal, and this is not a job for them. It's a driving force.
Mhm.
They don't make a lot of money. I barely make a living wage, you know, but they day in, day out, they pull every weed by hand. They would never put any chemical ever on any plant or weed or kill an insect here because we're about living, not killing.
Mhm.
And you can, I think that's what you taste when you
Yeah.
when you eat the produce. It's like what you said. I know as a botanist how it works with the microbes in the soil, and then they help to work with the root hairs of the plant, and they get molecules of molybdenum and boron that the plant can't get, and the plant gives them pay in glucose and sugar,
Mm.
and then so that plants can build the extra redness of the radish or the extra aroma that you smell that's so rich of the
Mhm.
tomato. But layered on top of that, it is the intention of the
Yep.
farmers.
It's incredible. And then Farm Days happens, and it's a 2-day weekend event, and so now there's a lot more people than you typically see there on a regular
Yes.
farm day, or
We had
farm market day.
500 last year,
That's
500
amazing.
people.
Yeah, and you get the top minds and, just the people who are out there doing the work, doing the research, sharing all of this knowledge, and people walk away from these farm days so inspired. And my favorite thing is that, you know, having been kind of visiting the farm, we moved here in 2015. So whenever you opened, like we started going right away. Um, and a lot of people that I'd met were very motivated by their health. It seemed like they were only concerned about health, and they only wanted to hear from people who wanted to talk about that. But now you have people that come, and like Gene Bauer, last year, Peter Singer,
Yeah.
and you talk about more than that, the ethics behind it, the
Well,
the whole
right,
system. Yeah.
because because it's multidimensional.
Mhm.
It's multidimensional, and um, uh, these things they're all important.
Yeah.
They're all important. And the other thing is that everybody has a why, right?
Mhm.
Everybody has a reason. I think the first most important thing is that people eat plants
Yeah.
and only plants. Your reason for doing it is secondary.
Mhm.
Most important thing is that you should only eat plants. Whether you do it to reverse your diabetes or to be kind to another individual or to save our planet, it's all good.
Mhm.
But I think that once you cross that line and then you realize, oh, you mean I'm doing this, but it's like you're gaining like this superpower kind of these strengths or these abilities that, oh my God, I started off doing it like for my health, but you know what? Now I'm like Mother Teresa.
Mhm.
I don't have to do anything extra.
Right.
I'm already doing it, but I was so good. I was so kind to do that. Or, you know what? Now I lie awake at night thinking about, oh my God, what are my children going to do? It's 100 degrees in June now. What when they get to my age? What are they going to do? And you can say, well, I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
I'm doing my part, just not by doing any extra, just by
Yeah.
eating plants.
That's true. Mhm. Yeah. It's really powerful, and I think when people hear that and they go, "Oh, it's just this simple change." And when you get into it, it's simple in that, yes, I'm gonna stop consuming animals and start eating plants, but there's a lot to it. There's emotion, there's
It,
culture, there's
it's very,
habit.
yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. I think that it seems too simple from the onset. Like,
Mhm.
what? Come on. You said you want me to get rid of my diabetes, and all I just have to do is eat vegetables? And
Right. Where's the catch?
but
No
it's
catch.
the doing it's not, yeah. And
Yeah.
from what you said, what gets in the way is human nature.
Mhm.
That's what it is. It's because food is addictive.
Yes.
Food makes one dependent.
Mhm.
Food drives unseen forces in us, which make us eat certain foods. And in order to overcome that, it's not easy for many people.
Right.
And that's why we help people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We help them to do it in the
Yeah.
practice. That's what we specialize.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not just you there. You've got a coach, and who else
Yeah,
helps
multiple
support?
coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole support team. So when people come to the practice, uh, I remember in the early days, people would come and they would say, "Okay, Dr. Wise, I have problem XYZ. Okay, tell me what to eat." And I said, "Well, I think I told you, plants." "Okay, tell me what to eat." What do you mean? What should I eat? I said, "Well, let's go over all the plants. You got vegetables, fruits, seeds and nuts, whole grains, legumes, starchy roots, mushrooms, seaweed. That's all. That's all the things you can eat in the world. But I want you to tell me what to eat. What exactly should and I didn't understand. I said, "What do you mean? I
Right.
just
I just
told
told
you."
you.
Because there's a disconnect. It's like, well, here, there's recipe books. You could there's like 1,000 recipe books that have all these ingredients in it, but it's still a high barrier. And the reason why is because there's an emotional and a neurologic problem
Mhm.
that people have, of not eating things that drive pleasure in them and memories. And so we learn quickly that we have to tend to those very human, you know,
Mhm.
human kinds of qualities. And
Yeah.
then people can be maximally successful in their journey.
That's amazing. And you have different levels of programs too, right? People need a little bit of help, people need more help, right? And then I think that you also
Yeah, we
have an
have
outing,
people
right?
we we have all kinds of programs and classes, and there many of them are open to the public. You don't have to be a patient. Um, we have, farm to table classes. This summer we have a healthy bread making course
Oh.
with the grains we grow here that is being given by one of our board members, Jason and Deb DeSalvo. They make the most delicious bread. It is a healthy bread, which is low in sodium, salt. It is whole wheat, but if you sat down and eat it, you would never want to eat any other bread ever. It's amazing. It's a sourdough. They're also going to teach us how to make pasta out
Mm.
of the same, and then shop in the vegetable and spontaneously, just which is really the way seasonality and local should be, where you just go to the market and you see what's there, and then that's what you're eating.
Yeah.
So they're going to teach us to do that. We have classes like that, and we have hikes and meetups and all kinds of wonderful things. because I'm a lifestyle medicine doctor.
Mm.
I'm board certified in that, and that's if people ask, what kind of doctor are you? I do practice primary care, but I'm not a conventional doctor. I'm not a functional medicine doctor. I'm not an alternative medicine doctor. I'm not an integrative medicine. I'm a lifestyle medicine doctor. And one of the keys to sustaining healthy lifestyle habits is social connection.
Mm.
We need to connect people,
Yeah.
and that helps make us sustain our healthy habits.
Mm-hmm. That is
So
so
that's
true.
why it's good to hang out with people who are doing good things.
Exactly. Yeah. The more that we feel supported, because most of the world still isn't vegan, they're not plant-based. So when we're just out in life, a lot of us are maybe the only one or one of two, and you can feel
Because
pretty
they're very
lonely
lonely
and
and
yeah.
they're lonely and not good feelings, especially for people who are new on the journey, because
Mhm.
it's like people are looking at them, trying to dissuade them from doing that all
Yep.
the time.
Yeah.
You mean you're not going to eat these cookies I made for you? I made them for you.
Mhm.
Your
Oh,
aunt
the
is giving them
guilt.
to you. And they have
Yeah.
butter and eggs. You're not going to eat them?
Right. How dare you say no? It's tough. Yeah, and that's where that why comes in. That's when you need the why. Because,
You need the
yeah,
why.
and then you can lean on that and go, "This is
And
why I'm."
I'll tell you something. The strongest why
Mhm.
is the ethical why.
Yep.
Of all the people, the different reasons to
Mhm.
eat plants, if you think that it's morally wrong to eat another sentient being, eh, those people are those people who are doing it for that why I it's highly unlikely,
Yeah.
almost impossible for them to eat.
Mhm.
Now they may be eating vegan junk food.
Absolutely. Hand up right here,
They
bin.
may eat,
Yeah.
potato chips and Oreo cookies and Diet Coke and all that stuff, but they're not going to eat knowing they're going to harm
Right.
another individual. Whereas if you're eating because you're whatever you want to get down your blood pressure or your rheumatoid arthritis is acting up,
Mhm.
you may cave.
Right, 'cause you'll go, "Oh, 1 steak won't make a big
It's not going to hurt.
difference."
I ate
Yeah.
kale so many times. Oh,
Mhm.
I love that hamburger. Oh, I'm just going to have one.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's so true, and anecdotally, that's my story. I got into this completely from the ethical side, and I was like, "Are there health benefits? Awesome. Extra perk. Not interested. I'm solely motivated by the animals." And unfortunately, having been someone who grew up loving sweets, the better the vegan junk food got, the more I enjoyed it. And so now I'm kind of going the other way where those are becoming things that are very rare in my life and I'm much more focused on whole food plant-based. But yeah, the idea that if someone presented to me dairy-based ice cream, like that's not food to me. Like things made from
Yes,
animals, not food.
it's
So
not
it's not.
considered edible.
Yeah.
So when did you become vegan?
I became vegan in 2015 and I'd gone vegetarian in 2001.
And why did you become vegetarian and why did you become vegan?
So I became vegetarian because I got an issue of PETA's Animal Times in the mail and I read it cover to cover and I didn't make the dairy connection, but I overnight went vegetarian. I spent all night throwing up, sick to my stomach, thinking about all of the animals' bodies I had consumed before that day. And then, I didn't know how to cook, I didn't eat vegetables, I didn't like them, so it was a real learning curve and a very interesting change I made. I was 20, and my parents were like, "This is not gonna stick." "Okay, great."
See, that's the
Eh
moral thing.
Yeah.
It's the moral North Star.
Yep.
You would have starved to death rather than
Absolutely.
you would have basically I'm sorry, I'm going to die rather than eat another.
Yep.
that.
Yeah. And so while I was learning how to cook and starting to understand food, I ate a lot of pasta. And since I was still vegetarian, covered it with cheese so I wasn't hungry. And I did. I just learned and I took the time and I dug more into the ethical piece of it and kept like getting that stronger connection to it all. And I knew that I wanted to be vegan. I knew that was the ultimate goal. Is like going vegetarian. I even since I was young, still living at home, had a job but not any bills, I was able to replace any animal products in my life. Leather shoes, handbags, any products I'd been using, got rid of all of it and replaced it. So the only thing holding me back from being vegan was the fact that I ate cheese all the time.
Is the most one of the most addictive. It's the most
Yes.
addictive animal food because it has narcotics in it,
Yep.
right? Vasomorphine, naturally occurring narcotics that makes the baby not want to leave the mother's breast.
Mhm.
Then
Yeah,
it makes us not want to leave cheese.
exactly.
Besides the fact that cheese has enormous amounts of salt in it.
Yeah.
Did you ever taste cheese with no salt or low salt cheese? It's
Right.
like a rubber with no flavor.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
so maybe you could tell our audience, I'm turning the table, because so that everyone understands um, that what's wrong with eating dairy products as far as from an ethical basis, because it's not like animals are not being killed for that, right? I mean,
Mm,
it's just a mother who keeps having babies and just
yeah.
keeps giving milk. Where is the animal we are eating?
I'm so glad you've asked. So, there's a ton of death in the dairy industry. These mothers are not choosing to become mothers, they are forced to become mothers. And then the moment their baby is born, the baby is taken away, or within a few moments, they've got to get the stuff started to so they can start milking her for all she's worth. And then sometimes those babies become milking cows themselves. Other times they become veal. So dairy really is the meat industry in that we're also funding this ability to turn boy calves into veal, which is a I've never eaten veal in my whole life because I saw an ad in a magazine when I was like 10 about a veal calf and it said he only has 3 feet and it meant the 3 feet size box he was in and they're kept anemic so that their flesh is nice and white for you because apparently that's enjoyable. And they're sick constantly. And then, as all of the animals that are going through our big agriculture system are, so they suffer been being transported, they then are slaughtered in a very cruel way. I don't know if you can kill anyone who doesn't wanna die in a non-cruel way, but, because they're commodities, which means that it's like make money, 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 so the faster you kill and you get them off the floor, the more, animals they can slaughter and the more money the corporations make.
As you're talking, I'm reminded of this story, which was very meaningful to me because I am a native son of Paterson, New Jersey,
Mhm.
the birthplace of the American dream.
Mm,
And uh, in Paterson, New Jersey, is the nation's largest halal slaughter.
mm,
And on the day before Christmas, about, I don't know, a handful of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I remember turning on the news and there was a item about a truck, a big truck that was carrying cows. They
mm.
were dairy cows to this slaughterhouse in Paterson to be slaughtered. And one of the cows jumped off of the truck onto Route 80,
Mhm.
Interstate Route 80, and started running down Route 80
Yeah.
again. And it reminded me of like why would an animal like what? Because the animal must have been terrified. That's
Right.
why.
Yep.
But it shouldn't probably knew what was coming.
Mhm.
And then everyone started, driving all over the place, not to hit the cow. The state troopers came, the police came, whatever. They finally got the cow. And there was a gentleman, I forget his name, but he's an animal sanctuary in Sussex County.
Yep.
You
Mike
probably know him.
Stura. Yep.
Mike
Mike Stura.
Sure,
Stura. Yep.
who swooped down,
Mm-hmm.
got
As he
this
does.
cow, and guess what? A delivered a baby. There were
Mm-hmm.
videos of him delivering the calf the next day.
Yeah.
So they were going to slaughter the pregnant cow with the
Yeah.
baby in her. It was a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful calf that was born.
Yeah.
And, it was just on Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
They named
it was just an amazing story. So that's a
yeah.
reminder of where the dairy industry can lead us
Mm-hmm. Their
as
names are
far as,
Brianna and Winter.
ethical.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Thanks for
Mhm.
sharing this. It is so important that we help people understand really what every time they go to the store and they buy these animal products, what they're really contributing to. And it's hard. It's so hard to face that when you realize whether you go vegan when you're 6 and you have the support of your family or you go vegan when you're 60. You still like, eventually you have a moment where you go, "Oh, wow. I was part of this. I was the reason one of the reasons why these animals are suffering so much and why all of this is happening." And you really have to kinda sit with that and work through those feelings. But once you do and you're, like, really committed, I think it really is the most beautiful thing we can do for ourselves, for the planet, for each other, for the
It is.
animals.
It is.
Hmm. Dr. Weiss, this conversation has been amazing. And I have got one more question for you. How does hummus show up in your life?
Mhm. Uh, I had a feeling you were going to ask that, but
I wonder why.
well, there is a special place that hummus has in my heart, and I haven't made it in a long time because I'm very busy these days, and you know I don't cook as much as I like to. But this hummus I made long, long ago. I call it Harold's hummus.
Hmm.
Harold was my father.
Oh.
And the reason why I call it that is because my father loved to eat garlic, but it was a crazy kind of eating of garlic. It wasn't like a normal human. There was something not right the way he ate garlic. He used to go to this Italian restaurant, and every day he would eat escarole and beans with loads of garlic on it. And he would come home smelling so badly that my mother would not let him in the house.
Wow.
Now, it wasn't a garlic smell.
Mm.
It was like a rotting garbage smell.
Oh.
It was like, like a garlic smell is not so bad. It smells like garlic. Generally, people like garlic.
Yeah.
But I think what would happen with him, there's some, I think that the molecules of the garlic, he would pass the LD50 level of the garlic. LD50 is like a lethal dose
Yep.
for all the consumers of this thing. It wouldn't kill him, but there were molecules in the garlic that would be metabolized by the next day and would start to off gas out of his from his skin. It wasn't a breath thing, and it was terrible. It was like, it smelled like a burning rubber, kind of like garbage, rotting garbage. It was just terrible. And my mother would complain. All the kids in the house would complain. It was so terrible. So after my father passed, I learned how healthy garlic was.
Hmm.
And I never ate that amount of garlic. I think it was the amount he was eating. And I decided one day I was going to make a special hummus using his ideas of garlic. And I did. And I took 2 large bulbs of garlic. They're not cooked, they're raw.
Ooh.
I blended them into maybe a quart of hummus, or maybe a quart and a half, 2 large bulbs,
Mm-hmm.
lemon juice, tahini. Am I missing something?
Water?
Back then, I probably used a little olive oil, but I wouldn't today because it's unnecessary. And, oh, the chickpeas.
Oh, yeah.
Chick,
I miss that too.
right, I forgot that. And so I would whip that up. And then on top of it, when I would plate it out, I would sprinkle sumac.
Hmm.
Sumac, and for those of you who don't know, is the highest antioxidant containing food in the world.
Wow.
It grows here native in New Jersey.
Oh.
But it is, and we have it here on the farm. Maybe one of these fall days when you come, you'll see sumac in the farm market. They're
Yeah.
little bright maroon berries. But it's a popular dish in the Middle East. This is a popular spice to the Middle Eastern cultures. So you very commonly see it sprinkled on top of Persian food. You'll find it on top of often like Lebanese, like on
Mm.
top of fattoush or hummus even. So I sprinkled that on top, and then I would start eating this. It had so much garlic in it. There were 2 effects. It was spicy. It
Yeah.
was so sharp and spicy. I had never eaten, I didn't put any pepper in it, but it was so like spicy, like I was like crying like it was an onion. It was hard to eat and swallow, but I did it anyway. And it was so invigorating that I would eat it just from the amount of garlic. And then I learned the next day,
Mm.
I would go to work in the emergency room. The nurses in the emergency room said, "You stink." Like, oh my God.
Oh
Did you have
no.
do you have like BO? What's wrong with you? It didn't even smell like garlic. So I realized from that it was the amount of
Yeah.
garlic. So once you go over that LD50, but I encourage everyone who's listening to give it a try,
Yeah.
because garlic, of all the vegetables that have ever been tested against cancer cells, of all of them, even more so than kale,
Mm.
it kills the most cancer cells in vitro and the broadest range of them of any vegetable.
Wow.
Garlic in vitro in laboratory cancer tests.
Okay.
So Harold's hummus.
Harold Thomas. Got it. Well, I'm definitely going to add maybe an extra clove next time I make.
Right.
We'll
Or
start
at least
small.
parsley. Eat some parsley when you're done, because
Yeah. Balance it out. Dr. Weiss, thank you so, so much for joining me tonight. What a joy this has been. What an interesting and informative conversation. I know my listeners will love.
well, thank you. You've been very kind, and thank you for supporting the Ethos Farm.
Of
Our
course.
farmers are very grateful, and I
Mm.
am too.
Well, thank you for the work you do.
Thanks.
Welcome back. I'm ready to start this episode over again. I want to listen to it one more time, and maybe 3 more times, and probably again after that. I absolutely loved sitting down with Dr. Weiss for this conversation. To learn more about Dr. Weiss's medical practice, the farm market, farm days, and more, visit his website, ethosprimarycare.com. You'll find the website as well as links to TikTok and LinkedIn in the show notes. By the way, I will be a vendor at Farm Days this year, which will take place on September 14th and 15th at the historic 342-acre regenerative farm in Long Valley, New Jersey. Grab your tickets via the link in the show notes and let me know if you'll be there. Be sure to swing by my booth or stop me when you see me around the farm over that weekend. I'd love to meet you. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving it, please give Did You Bring the Hummus a 5-star rating and leave a review. It's an easy way to keep supporting the show. Be sure to share these episodes with your friends. If you're finding something good here, they will too. If you're a vegan or know a vegan who would be a great fit for the podcast, follow the Be a Guest link in the show notes. Fill out the quiz and I'll be in touch. Get on my mailing list and grab 3 super fun and easy recipes as a thank you. Check out the Support the Podcast tab on my website for more info on how you can help support this show as a monthly contributor or by sponsoring episodes. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Did You Bring the Hummus, and visit my website, didyouBringTheHummus.com, for more information about me, updates on what I'm working on, new podcast episodes, and all things vegan. Finally, I would love to hear from you. What do you need help with? Is there a topic you want to hear covered on a future episode? DM me on Instagram or send me an email at info@didyouBringTheHummus.com. Thanks for listening.